I might say that. Where's my teleprompter?
Ever notice that?
Yeah.
Side to side.
What we'll do is just don't really pay much attention.
I'm going to ask him first.
I'm going to get you to talk a little bit, just riff a little on the environmentalists, what they're doing, and how it affects you guys.
Do you want me to say anything about, I mean, I'm just asking my, why I guess I'm able to, my background?
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll get all
Go,
that.
go through it
Okay.
all. I mean,
All right.
everything. I mean, we'll cut it together.
Yeah,
and
we'll start with that, Randy. We can just talk a little bit about what you do.
How
Start
long
off
you been
with
in the
how-
coal
yeah.
industry?
Oh, okay.
Do we want to include the co-op as well?
Yeah, just anything.
I'll
You're
just tell a little
minor.
brief. After college, I should say after I spent 3 years, 10 months, 2 days, 7 hours, and 15 minutes in the damn service, because I got drafted in the Marines. I got drafted in the Marines in 1956, unlike our president. But anyway.
all right, whenever you're ready.
All right, Randy, tell us a little bit about what you do, your background, and what you're doing now in the coal industry.
Okay, after service, after I got out of the service and finished college, I started to work for Drummond Coal Company and in Costa County. Prior to that, I'd worked with a CPA firm, and but I started with Drummond in Costa County. Worked in accounting for about 7 years, and then asked to get into the sales group. I got into the sales group, and I was there about 7 years. I bought coal, transported it, exported it, loaded the boats in New Orleans and in Mobile and on the East Coast. It went to Europe, South America for about 7 years, and that's what I did with Drummond. In 1987, I left Drummond and formed my own coal company. And about a year later, the small coal miners of Alabama just didn't have any representation on the bigger contracts, be able to get a big contract. So I formed, me and some other small coal miners, we formed Alabama Coal Cooperative, of which today we've been operating 22 years. We've shipped utilities probably 35 to 37 million tons of coal during that period to Alabama utilities. Helped with the ratepayers, with the economics of the cost of coal. You know, Alabama wouldn't having to import the coal from out of the country or import the coal from other states. So it was logical that Alabama having a reserve, Alabama has reserves. We're going to do about 20 million tons this year of coal in Alabama. And we've got reserves to last 50, 75, 80 years. So it's obvious that Alabama needs to use their resource here in Alabama. But 20 years we've been doing this, and
Can I stop? The same sort of passion before.
I can get passionate.
I could tell. Go right ahead.
Go ahead. It's very important that Alabama use its resources for Alabamians. We transport the coal. We're right here in the utilities' backyard. Our transportation costs are less. We can barge it to South Alabama. We can rail it to Wilsonville, or we can barge it to TVA. We're in the backyard of Alabamians, and it's a lot better for Alabama to use Alabama coal than to import the coal from other countries or from other states, for example.
Randy, what do you think about these folks from the Northeast or some of these West Coast liberals coming into Alabama and trying to tell us how we ought to use our natural resources?
I think they need to stay in their own state and leave us alone. We know what we're doing here. That's the problem with the federal government. They're down here in our backyard trying to tell us how to mine coal, and they've got one shoe that fits all. It doesn't happen that way. The coal mined in Kentucky, the coal mined in West Virginia, the coal mined out west in Powder River Basin, the mining techniques and what you do is completely different than what it is in Alabama. We've got thin seam mines here in Alabama. We have to do things that Kentucky doesn't have to do. West Virginia doesn't have to do. Powder River Basin doesn't have to do. They've got, out in Powder River Basin, they've got seams of coal that are 85 foot thick. Here in Alabama, we got seams of coal that run from 12 inches to 42 inches. But we've got a lot of coal. And
What would you tell Lisa Jackson or the folks at the EPA, if you could tell them one thing, what would that be?
I tell them to hire somebody that had worked in the industry, knew something about it, before they send them out to try to tell them or tell me how to do something. I've been here. I've been in this business for 30 years. I've built the settling ponds. I've got the permits. I've taken care of ADEM in the water. We know what we're doing. I doubt they do.
Are you worried about what these new environmental regulations are going to mean for your family, for jobs for the folks here in Alabama?
Sure. Everybody ought to be worried about that. I worry about it for my grandkids. I mean, what are they going to do when they, 20 years from now, when they're 25, getting them a job, trying to pay an electric bill that's 4 and 5 times higher than what it is today? Because that's going to happen, guys. It's going to happen. Natural gas, it might be $4 a unit right now, but it's going back to 13 one day, just like it was in 2008. And what are we going to do then? Because if $13 prices, and I'm not, this is not statistics, I mean, it's just my opinion, but $13 prices, the people that's got a $150 light bill a month, they're going to be paying $700 a month for electricity. What are people going to do? What is the Lisa Jacksons and the governmental agencies, what are they going to do?
So the environmental, talk a little bit about the environmental stuff that you guys do right now. I guess a big premise of their argument is that you're, we're ruining the earth, global warming, the whole thing. Talk about some of the stuff that you guys do to take care of the environment.
Okay, let me say this. I've met with some of the EPA people and on site at some of my coal mines. Here's what we do, and let me say this too, first of all. A lot of them didn't understand what we did. They didn't know why we did it. They wasn't even familiar with what the state of Alabama did. Before we go and mine an area, okay, before we do the engineering, make sure the coal's there, look at the economy of it, if it can be done, economically, to fit the market situation. Because y'all keep in mind, we do have to be competitive. I'm not getting any government handouts like Celinda and all the windmill people and all of the solar panel people. I'm not getting $89 billion to help me. I have to do it on my own because I'm an entrepreneur. But to answer your question, let me.
No, that was good.
Cut.
Hey,
Cut.
shoot, that was good. Tell me when you're ready, Josh.
Yeah, I'm ready right now.
How about, what would you tell these liberal environmentalists at the PSC? If you could tell them one thing, what would it be? Or talk about some of the environmentalists invading the Public Service Commission down there.
Well, I think the first thing the environmentalists need to do is come talk to us, Surface Mining Commission, the Alabama Surface Mining Commission, and find out what we do when we put in a coal mine. Everybody thinks that we're the big old bad ugly gorilla, and we're not. Let me tell you something, guys. Before we open up a coal mine, we do an archaeological study. That's performed by an independent agency. We pay for it too, by the way. We do an endangered plant survey, usually a biologist from one of the universities. We do an endangered species. We look for historical artifacts or historical sites. We do all of that. And then, when all that's cleared, then we got professional engineers, mining engineers, and they permit the area for us. From reclamation, how we're going to reclaim the land, about they placed the settling ponds, and they're all designed by professional engineers. I'm not going out there just building a pond. We've got specs on them, we build them, and the ponds are built strictly to control the rain. Not one drop of water in a coal mine ever gets into a creek without going through the settling pond. In the settling ponds, and this is something EPA didn't even realize, the people I met with, that we treat those, I mean, we don't treat them, we check them twice a month. And this goes on for years. It's not just once, it's not just random. Every month we check these ponds for the life of that coal mine. And let me tell you this, the life of a coal mine, when I get through with a coal mine, it's going to take 5 to 7 years to get my bonds released. And while I'm talking about bonds, because I jump around a lot and I apologize, but for a typical coal mine, and I showed y'all one right here. For a typical coal mine, me and my partner, we had $2.4 million in bonds posted with the Surface Mining Commission. And what were those bonds for? To ensure that when we got through, we reclaimed the land. The land was put back, vegetated, mulched, sowed, and that's what it was for.
Why do you think that the liberal environmentalists are trying to shut you down and shut your industry down?
I've pondered that a lot. I don't understand it. You look at the United States. The United States has 25% of the world's coal reserves. Okay, 25%. That's a big number. We've got 250 to 280 years of coal here in the United States. We could be energy sufficient. You know, I would suggest to the administration, the current administration that we have, is instead of spending $89 billion on subsidizing the solar panels, they spend a little bit with the coal people to help us determine what maybe we can do to make things better. I've been in this business for 30 years. I've never received not one dime in subsidies from the coal business. In 1981, when we were bleeding to death, cut at both ends. Fuel had jumped up and labor had jumped up and all that. We didn't get any help from anybody.
Now that the environmentalists are down at the Public Service Commission, what would you hope that the Public Service Commission would do?
Take a good look at why they're there. You know, they want to get rid of coal. And if you ask them the question, and I've asked some of them, what are they going to substitute coal for? You're looking here in Alabama, and the statistics might not be exactly right, but coal is responsible for 40 to 50% of the electricity that's generated here in the state of Alabama. Windmills ain't going to work in Alabama. We don't have any wind. Somebody told me, took a study, that in order for solar panels to work here in Alabama, that you'd have to put solar panels on every roof in the whole state. And for biofuels to work, which I want to make a statement about that, because we've worked with biofuel stuff with Alabama Power. They're really good. Alabama Power is good people. But you'd have to put, I told you that, you'd have to put solar panels on every roof in Alabama. The biofuels, it wouldn't take, in order for biofuels to work, that's wood, grinding wood, burning it, drying it, blending it with coal. Within a few months, you'd have to cut every tree in the state of Alabama. And I agree, trees are renewable, but it takes 20 to 30 years to grow them. So, what do you do? So, but let me say this. The environmentalists have not answered that question. They've not, they've got all these great, grandiose ideas, but how are they going to replace it?
Compare what they're trying to do now in Alabama to what they've already been able to do in Georgia, shutting down the coal-fired plants.
I don't really, I know they're here. I went to a couple of meetings where they were present. The environmentalists had their own agenda. They didn't want to discuss basically the topics that we were there to discuss. Therefore, they didn't really say much, because they couldn't change the meeting, the direction of the meeting. So they just kind of stayed separate. But I'm back to what I said earlier. They need to listen to some people that's been there, done that. You know.
What do you think, Tim? What you want to try to get?
Couple maybe a couple just repeat after me. Say that again. Make sure to repeat what you just said.
Okay.
And say the environmentalists are trying to get a seat at the table.
In my opinion, the environmentalists are trying to get a seat at the table, but also, in my opinion, what gives them the right to have a seat at the table? They're not even from the state of Alabama. From what I understand, they're from California, from New York. They don't need to tell us what we need to do here in Alabama. We have a governor, which we think is doing a great job, and we have our own department called ADM. They're the ones that need to regulate us. They've always done a good job over the years, and I've been here 30 years, so I know they've done a good job. Why do we need the EPA looking across their shoulder? You know,
Tell us how many.
Alabama Coal Cooperative, which I'm a member and also president of, we have about 750 jobs, mining jobs, okay? That equates to about 2,500 jobs when you look at the mechanics we use, the truckers we use, the engineers we use, the accountants we use. I mean, we use a lot of different professions.
Didn't you mention 5,000 jobs total in the state of coal?
Sure, and that'll probably equate to 20 to 25,000 jobs. And hey, these are good paying jobs.
No.
Yeah, hit on those big numbers, Randy. Talk about those. The state of Alabama had 5.
Yeah, get right. Yeah.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
When these environmentalists just simply, if the Public Service Commission listens to them, and when these environmentalists gets their way and they shut down these 5,000 jobs, coal mining jobs, which equates to 20,000 total jobs. And when I say jobs, I mean mining jobs, professionals, trucking, equipment dealers. Just think about it. We're involved in every facet of the communities that we're in. And here's something too. We're in about 8 or 9 counties here in Alabama. We're just not sitting over here across the mountain over here. We're in a lot of the municipalities in these counties. And keep this in mind too. We help the schools in our area. We help the fire departments. We help the municipalities. I mean, go ask them. Go ask them what we've done to help them. The fire departments, the schools. Go to Bryan Elementary School. Me and Thompson Tractor and Alabama Power, the playground, and I'm saying this because I just want the people to know. The playground, they had a playground at Bryan Elementary School with 700 students that really, you know, my kids couldn't have played on it, my grandkids. We built them a new playground. They had the principal brought out the whole 700 of them, and you know what I told them? Study their books. Because if you don't study your book, you're in trouble. But
hey, I got one more, and then we can wrap it up. Can you look in the camera and repeat this and say, they're worried about hugging trees, we're worried about our jobs and feeding our families.
Dang it, y'all gonna get me put in jail.
They're worried about hugging trees. We're worried about. What is
We're
it?
worried about our
Let me
jobs
think just a
and
minute.
feeding our-
Make sure you look right in there for me. All right.
Right.
There we go. In action.
In my opinion, environmentalists are worried about their agenda. I'm worried about my grandkids. The old lady that comes to my church on Wednesday morning to get help with her light bill. She can't pay it now. How's she gonna pay it when the environmentalists get through with her? You people need to wake up and let this country heal from all of this, all these problems we got, and everybody join in and let's try to fix the problem. not create more problems. And in my opinion, that's what the environmentalists are doing. They're creating problems that are harder to solve and cost the ratepayers a lot more money.
All right, I got one more. I swear this is it. We're done. You said it before. You said I'm American. I'm an American, a veteran.
Hold on 1 second. All right, action.
I'd like to say this too. I'm an American, I'm a veteran, and they won't let me do my job. I know how to do my job. I know how to mine coal. I know how to ship it. And also, I know how to reclaim the land. And I'd just like to show you a few pictures of my reclamation.
All right, let's get that.
All right, action.
I hear all the time from people that coal mines destroy the property, just devalue the land, just all kind of stuff, all negative stuff about what we do. I'm here to tell you that we do a good job. These are some of the pictures of my reclamation. Now, these pictures were taken about 8 years ago, so they look a lot better now. We leave ponds. In some instances, we leave ponds in wooded areas for wildlife refuge and for habitat. You know, we plant the sawtooth oats for the deers and stuff like that. And even big areas. I mean, this is 160 acres right here. And you can see that it's stabilized. We don't have any issues. Okay, you got out.
That little noise, yeah. There we go.
But we do a good job. This right here represents 160 acres. And it doesn't really show you all of it, but I can assure you it all looks the same. These trees now are 15, 20 foot tall, these pine trees. This land is in my opinion, in better shape than it was. And let me make one point too. These areas right here that I just showed you had old mining works from the early 1900s on them, old punch mines where they went in there with a pick and shovel and got the coal. They left the openings open. There wasn't nothing done. I've eliminated all that. I mean, I've done some things that is good for the environment. So, you environmentalists need to take another look at what the coal miners do, what we actually do.
Good job.
When the eye in the sky is
And
looking
yeah,
at
and just
you.
so you know, Paul, I don't know if I explained to you, this video is going to be a Yellowhammer Politics video. And so it's going to be on, just so you know, not to put any pressure on you, but it's going to be on the internet on Yellowhammer Politics for the world to see.
No, it's going to be on.
We're rolling. Go ahead.
All right, Paul, what do you think, why do you think Obama is targeting Alabama with these new environmental regulations?
I think he's got an agenda, and the agenda is to remove coal. And I really don't know that I need to expound more on the agenda that he is trying to do, because I'm going to sound like a wild conspiracy theory guy, but there's a plan here, and he's just following his plan that he mapped out.
What effect do you think that his plan, his environmental regulations and the coal stuff, what effect do you think that's going to have on jobs in the economy here in Alabama?
Well, it's not good. I don't know the percentage of the revenue that we derive from our coal industry, but I know it's good, it's healthy, it's been here a long time. Coal has contributed to making us what we are, and as long as it keeps utility rates down, Alabama stays competitive for manufacturing. And so does it affect everybody that walks on Alabama soil that's a native of Alabama? The answer is absolutely yes. It affects you in a negative way.
What if you could say one thing to the environmentalist at the PSC right now, what would it be?
You're not by yourself. We meet you in every governmental agency there is. I'm in an industry that's regulated by the government. If it's got initials after its name, it regulates me. I've seen the gradually tightening and the ridiculousness of everything that the government regulates as it squeezes us as independent business people more and more. We fight every day, not just to make payroll, but we fight what the federal government's doing as they take the regulations and they squeeze it more and more and more.
What compelled you to launch the Alabama Free Market Alliance, and what exactly do you stand for in your position as chairman for your organization?
My position with the Free Market Alliance is simply this. I am sick of government telling me what I can do and what I can't do, and the absurdity of some of the things that we have to jump through. Now, government regulation is not new. We had government regulation in excess in the Bush administration, so let's call a spade a spade. It didn't just start when Obama took office, but Bush didn't use it as a weapon to try to destroy the system, to bring capitalism down so he could replace it with something of their own making. This is what we're facing today. I don't care who says what. There is a method right now in the what we see with the federal government tightening regulations more and more and more, and it's to bring about a purpose, and that purpose is to destroy the free market, the free enterprise system that we have, and reduce us to where everybody is in lockstep working for what dear old Uncle Sam says. It makes me want to say, when do we get to the point that a guy named Winston Smith steps up to the plate and says, here I am?
What do you think, what worries you the most, or does it worry you that some of these new environmental regulations and government regulations in general are going to kill jobs here in the state of Alabama? Trying to kind of bring it down home to folks here.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt that the environmentalist efforts are going to stifle everything they touch. In the industry I'm in, yes, we have EPA problems, environmental problems, that we put out thousands and thousands of dollars before a project can even start. And then what do we have to show for it? Absolutely nothing. It is a dead expense. If you want to look at it in another vein, it is a tax. That's all it is. We are faced with something that used to cost us nothing, now costs us $6,500 minimum before we start. We have nothing to show for that other than an approval and an extra step from Uncle Sam. What does that mean? That means this: Uncle Sam is taxing me $6,500.
Do you think that companies like Airbus and ThyssenKrupp and Mercedes, new industries that have come to Alabama in recent years, do you think that they would continue to choose Alabama if we didn't have such affordable energy rates here?
No, I think that's a big part of it, and we can give them all the tax incentives we want to give them, and we've got good labor forces here in the state, but the cost of operation of producing their widget has got to be at a minimum compared to other places they can locate and prepare and market their widget. So what is one of those ways? One of those ways is with reduced energy costs and driving the machinery that produces the widget.
Well, why do you think that...
Hold on.
Let me know when you're ready to roll, Joshua.
Let's go.
Why do you think that Northeast and West Coast liberals are trying to tell us how to produce our energy?
First of all, to them it is a religion. They truly believe, many of them believe this stuff that's dished out to them, that the earth is going to boil if everybody has an air conditioner in a big car. They're convinced that they have to save us from ourselves. That's the first thing. Secondly, they do not see that they're being used by the powers behind them to neutralize the playing field. Why does someone in the Northeast that has a manufacturing plant or something he doesn't want his widgets that it can be produced in South Alabama to be 15, 18, 20% less than what he can produce them for. So what he has to do is to bring our cost up in order to keep his widget at the same price.
Why don't we hammer on that exactly real quick, Paul? Why don't you say something, kind of a quick kind of hit on Alabama has something to the effect of Alabama has the ability to produce goods cheaper than they can in the Northeast, and they're trying to drive our energy rates up to level the playing field, something like that.
The struggle between the Northeast and the South, especially Alabama, because we are usually the saying was the symbol of the South, and I'd like to say the symbol of the New South. But here's the deal. That didn't just start 3 years ago, 5 years ago. That happened over 100 years ago. In order to keep the South subdued, you have to bring their cost up because you can't bring your cost down. They've gotten unionized and they've gotten high cost of raw materials to the point that their widget is going to cost them $50 to make. You can make the same widget in Alabama for $35. So what do? You can't bring your cost down, so what you have to do is do everything you can to make sure that the cost in Alabama goes up. One of the ways that they raise that cost is by increasing our cost on electrical or gas or whatever energy is used, its production, and the cost of us building a widget in Alabama.
You want to hit some one-liners, Tim?
Yeah. What about this? Can you repeat something back to me, Paul?
Sure.
Say liberal environmentalists have made the Public Service Commission ground zero for their invasion of Alabama. Can you say that? Liberal environmentalists have made the Public Service Commission ground zero for their invasion of Alabama.
Liberal environments.
It's okay. Start over.
Liberal environmentalists.
I'm sorry. Give it a beat. You guys overlap for a second.
Okay. Liberal environmentalists, especially from the Northeast, have made the Alabama Public Service Commission ground zero in their fight to raise energy costs in the Southeast.
Boom. Good. How about San Francisco lawyers have no business coming down here and telling us how to use our natural resources. San Francisco lawyers have no business coming down here and telling us how to use our natural resources.
For one thing, San Francisco attorneys have no business coming to Alabama and trying to tell us how to run our affairs.
Say it one more time. San Francisco attorneys have no business coming down here and telling us how to use our natural resources.
For one thing, San Francisco attorneys have no business coming to Alabama and trying to tell us how to use our natural resources.
One more time. One more time.
For one thing, San Francisco lawyers have no business coming to Alabama and trying to tell us how to use our natural resources.
Perfect.
Money.
Perfect.
What else we got real quick, Tim? Is there anything else on here?
When do I get to talk about us wanting to go up and clean out the FCC? Not now. I know. This is no,
I'm all for it.
No, but I want to reconvene this again.
Okay.
And give me a chance. I was just telling Roger McConnell that if Sessions' office has really stepped up to the plate for us, but we've got something there now that is so stupid, but it's costing us $350,000 every time they make a move on something.
You know what? Give me the information, and you bring up a good point, Paul. Let me put something together, and then try and get those guys, those congressional offices, and some other people to help move it around a little bit, and maybe get a little extra pop out of it.
Okay.
Give me the info.
Okay.
What about this one right here, just to drive home the jobs thing, and then we'll be out?
Okay.
What about, you know why Airbus and Mercedes and all still chose Alabama? Because our energy rates are a fraction of what they are in the Northeast. Something like that.
Can you say that?
Sure.
Read it back to me one more time.
You know why Airbus and Mercedes and all still chose Alabama? Because our energy rates are a fraction of what they are in the
Okay, you
Northeast.
said three. I didn't catch the third one.
Alstom.
Airbus.
You can just do two. You know why? You know,
Mercedes.
say
Airbus
something.
and Mercedes.
You know why Airbus and Mercedes choose Alabama?
You know why Mercedes and Airbus choose Alabama? Because their energy rates are a fraction of what they would cost for the same amount of energy in the Northeast.
One more
I think
time.
I screwed it.
Yeah, one more time. And say, you say it, Clinton. Let him read it back to you.
You know why Airbus and Mercedes chose Alabama? Because our energy rates are a fraction of what they are in the Northeast.
You know why Airbus and Mercedes chose Alabama over the Northeast? It's because our energy rates are a fraction of what they would have to pay in these guys' territory.
That's good. That's
Strong.
good.
All right, good. I think we got it, Paul.
Will you just talk to him for just like 1 minute while I get some pickup shots of him?
Yeah.
Just
Tell me about, Paul, just tell me about,
I want to hear about the FCC stuff.
Yeah,
man.
tell Cliff about
What's the $350,000 thing?
Can I listen? Can I tell you a good one?
Tell me a good
I'm
one.
collecting these things.
tell me.
A guy in Missouri. This is the truth. A guy in Missouri is an illusionist. He's a magician, kids magicians. He's an amateur. One of the things that he does is he reaches in an empty hat and pulls out a little bitty live bunny rabbit. The USDA makes him have to have a permit. His bunny rabbit. Now wait a minute, that's not all. He made them mad, so they sent him a 6-page list of questions that he had to do on establishing a disaster plan for how he would protect the bunny rabbit in case of a disaster. A fire, a tornado, all of these things. He has until June the
Where did you
July
get
the
this, Paul?
13th to get it in.
Where did you get this?
I get it where I get all my good stuff. I'm Glenn Beck's boy.
Oh, is it on his
But
website?
this is
we need
true.
to,
This is
we
true.
need to circulate that on AFMA.
This-
Getting out as fast as I can. So, one of the things that I'd suggest to energy now costs take 20% of the incomes of people making 50,000 or less, and it's almost 24% of people earning less than 30,000. And if you're in the bottom quintile of income, you pay 5 times as much of your disposable income as somebody in the top quintile. So you
We
have
need to-
all the left
yeah.
out there talking about, you know, unfairness and inequality in incomes and stuff, yet they're pushing policies that are demonstratively hurtful to low-income people.
What do you think will happen?
Are you ready, Josh?
yeah, I'm ready, but I just had
I think we need
What do you think will happen to those families you talked about, or if the liberal environmentalist agenda comes to fruition?
It's going to cost thousands of jobs. As I've gotten older, I've gotten more forgetful.
You're fine.
all right.
We just appreciate
I've had
you.
this, I claim it's age, but even when I was single, I literally met a really good-looking girl in a place I shouldn't have been, but I got her phone number, but couldn't remember her name. And I called her up and said, "Hey, I met you," such. She hung up, so that should have been incentive enough to remember the name before the number. But I've always been able to remember numbers.
Well, you spoke about folks that are struggling now.
Yeah.
What will happen to those folks that are struggling now if the liberal environmentalist agenda comes to fruition?
We're in an economic situation right now where the unemployment numbers really don't reflect the true state of the economy or even the true state of unemployment. And now you've got an administration bent on imposing more regulations that are going to cost even more jobs. And it's going to be particularly hurtful to southern states, which I find interesting because we're so heavily dependent on manufacturing and mining. If the environmentalists here in Alabama are successful in shutting down coal-fired utility facilities, not only will that take out about 30% of the electricity grid capacity, it's also going to eliminate thousands of jobs, and particularly among miners, but also in other areas, because as energy costs go up, the cost of operating and running a business goes up with it. So I think what we're looking at is literally losing the coal industry in Alabama, and then being forced to shift our energy production to renewable sources, which in some cases cost 6 times as much as fossil fuel. And all that cost gets passed on to families. It's particularly difficult for low-income families. During the debate over the cap and trade legislation, the Tax Foundation did an analysis of how this would impact the various income groups. And they found that the people who are in the lowest 20%, the lowest quintile of wage earners, will pay 6 times as much of their disposable income for energy as the people in the top 20%, the top quintile. So you have the left out here arguing for income equality. They're saying that, you know, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. Well, here they are now advocating policies that literally, by a factor of 5, increase the cost on low-income families and eat up their disposable income. So it is patently unfair. You've also got a situation with the elderly. Since 2002, somewhere in that range, energy cost as a percentage of disposable income has doubled. You now pay people who earn $50,000 a year or less, which is more than the median household income in Alabama by about $8,000 or $6,000. Those people now pay 20% of their disposable income just to pay their energy bills. So for every $5 that you have to go out and buy clothing, put food on the table, pay for your children's education, $1 of that has to go to cover your energy costs, keeping your house cooled or heated and the lights on and fuel in your car. But for households that earn less than $30,000, they're spending 24% of their disposable income. So that has a very heavy impact on low-income families, for one thing, but also on the elderly. There are a little over 31 million households in the United States in which the principal occupants are over age 65. Their median income is less than $35,000. I think it's around $32,000, $33,000. And you think about them having to pay almost a quarter, you know, of their disposable income just to keep the house heated and cooled and pay their energy costs. If we could go the other direction and tap into these enormous resources that we have, we've got 280 trillion cubic feet of proven natural gas reserves. We've got enough coal using current mining technologies to last for 249 years, and we've got over 3 trillion barrels of recoverable oil. If we would tap into those resources, we could cut the cost of gasoline at the pump in half. We could reduce the household income, and for elderly people, that's like giving them an increase in their Social Security benefit.
Why do you think Obama and his administration are singling out coal and the coal industry and trying to restrict the use of natural resources in some states, particularly the South, particularly Alabama?
Well, if you wanted to give them some degree of credit for being sincere about their beliefs about global warming, or as they say, global climate change, which is a misrepresentation of the debate. It's always been about global warming. The global climate changes all the time, and I believe that it warms and cools all the time and has throughout history. You could say that they're sincerely thinking that they're going to save the planet. But I think there's more to it than that. I think that if you look at what he's done on health care, you look at what he's doing on energy, and a couple of other areas, it becomes evident that this is really about power. And it's about a governing philosophy. It's about control. And the more people that you can get dependent on the government, the more control, the more power you have. And here's another interesting thing, is that the average person doesn't realize this, that HHS has a program to provide financial relief to low-income families to help them pay their utility bills. I think it was 2011 through April of the federal fiscal year that year. They had already sent almost $54 million to Alabama, and it was distributed through our Department of Health and Human Resources. So here we are increasing, implementing policies that are going to substantially negatively impact low-income families, and then the federal government's coming back, not going through the Energy Department or EPA to do this, to doing it through Health and Human Services to offset this cost with another federal handout. So, I don't know, you connect the dots and you kind of come to a conclusion that maybe this is not, they're not as sincere about the whole global warming or global climate change agenda. It's about something else.
And you got into it a little bit before, but you know, will there be a detrimental effect on the job creation climate here in Alabama if these policies come to fruition? We've enjoyed getting Mercedes, Honda, Hyundai, Airbus.
Absolutely, and I testified before the Public Service Commission, and I made this point that you can run the numbers, you can do the dynamic scoring, and when you increase cost at any level, whether it's a regulatory cost, a tax, permitting, licensing, any of that, all that adds up, and it makes your state or your community less attractive to business. And the poster child for this is the state of California, where I said in my testimony, perhaps the fastest growing industry in California is the moving van industry. They can't keep trucks on their lot because people are getting out of California as fast as they can, and they're moving to Texas, and they're moving to other states where there is a business friendly climate.
You got anything?
That was good. That was going to hit on that next.
Yeah.
I think that's
That was
pretty
solid.
much got it.
Yeah.
Josh, you good?
Good.